fellowship. Would you come forward and lead us in the benediction, please?
Let's pray. Father, we thank you today for the blessings that you've given us. You've been so good to us as a country and as a community, and we are so thankful for your graciousness. We thank you, Lord, for the way that you have provided for us in so many means, physically, emotionally, spiritually. We thank you for your provisions. Thank you for your care and for your love for us. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity of being able to be in this community and for the blessings that you've bestowed on us here, particularly even as we reflect over the past week and the way that you spared us from any storms that had the potential of coming. We thank you for that and for your protective hand. And Lord, we pray today that you might be with this meeting. We thank you for our council members. Thank you for our civil servants, for each of those. We pray that as they meet today, that you'll give wisdom, that you'll give them insight, and may they make the decisions that will be best for those that they represent. And most of all, we pray that the decisions they make will be such that it will honor you, and you'll be pleased with those decisions as well. We pray for our country as a whole, Lord, that you might call us back to you, and we might see a real revival within our midst, and we might see a return to the principles in which we were founded. Lord, we pray for our civil servants that are out there. Many of them seem to have targets on them today, and we pray that you'll just protect them, whether they're elected officials or whether they're with our police force. We pray for your protection and your hand upon them. Help us, Lord, to do the things that would represent you, the things that would please you. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, we open the regular City Council meeting of September 1st. Mrs. Bach, would you call the roll?
Mr. Old?
Here.
Ms. Graves?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mayor Winger?
Here. All right, preliminary matters, agenda additions, deletions, and adoption. Are there any changes, please?
Staff has no changes.
Motion to approve. Agenda as stated.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. All right, proclamations.
Okay, I have the first proclamation. Krista Garofalo. Okay, great. Come on up to the podium. Okay. Whereas hunger and poverty remain issues of grave concern in the United States, the state of Florida, the Treasure Coast, and the city of Vero Beach, and the city of Vero Beach is committed to taking steps to raise awareness about the need to combat hunger in every part of our city and to provide additional resources that citizens of Vero Beach need. And the city of Vero Beach is committed to working with the Treasure Coast Food Bank in educating people about the role and importance of food banks and hunger relief organizations in addressing hunger and bringing attention of the need to devote more resources and attention to hunger issues. And food banks and hunger relief organizations across the country, including the Treasure Coast Food Bank, will host numerous events throughout the month of September to shed light on this important issue and encourage involvement in efforts to end hunger in their local community. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, does hereby recognize September 2015 as Hunger Action Month in the City of Vero Beach and call this observance to the attention of our citizens.
Thank you very much. We very much appreciate all of your support. Thank you for those of you wearing orange and for participating in this. This is a big event for us every year to try to help people understand the situation that people find themselves in when they are not able to put food on their tables. It's a struggle. It's hard for them a lot of times to ask for help. And that's why we're here in the community and why we work with so many partner agencies and different community organizations to help alleviate that burden on them so they can get through their temporary situation and help them get back onto the path of self-sufficiency. So thank you very much for your support. We really appreciate it. We hope that you'll check out our website, stophunger.org. We have a lot of events coming up in September. We have a 24-hour packing event at our warehouse in Fort Pierce. We're going to be packing food and meals and different food boxes for 24 hours straight. So we hope that some of you can come out. It'll be different shifts, not everyone will be there all 24 hours. But we have 3-hour shifts available. We'd love to see some of you come out and help us with that. And we're going to hopefully be able to pack 100,000 pounds of food in 24 hours. So please join us in doing that, or any of the other things that we have available on our website for you to participate and help alleviate hunger on the Treasure Coast and in the city of Vero Beach. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up here. This way. Come on up.
In the front?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Good job.
I have enough orange, but I'll put a little bit more in too.
Thank you.
Yourself breaking up the microphone.
Oh, yeah. Here. Let me give you this. Here, Krista. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Robert Whiteley, will you come forward? Okay, there. This is a mental illness award week. Whereas serious mental illness such as major depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, obsessive-compulsive disorder, severe anxiety disorders, borderline personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorders affect 1 in 4 people annually. And whereas serious mental illness is a highly treatable medical illness of the brain posing the same concern as cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and other illnesses, and whereas scientific research is producing tremendous breakthroughs in the understanding of mental illnesses, resulting in more effective treatments that allow people to reclaim full and productive lives, and whereas misunderstandings exist about many mental illnesses and our social culture often wrongly imposes stigma on mental illness. Now, therefore, the City Council of City of Vero Beach, Florida, does hereby proclaim October 4th through the 10th, 2015, as Mental Illness Awareness Week in the City of Vero Beach, Florida, to increase public awareness of mental illnesses and to promote treatment and recovery. Thank you.
Thank you. In 1990, the U.S. Congress established this week, the first week in October, as the Mental Illness Awareness Week. And NAMI, which is more concerned with the caregivers of those who are mentally ill. So we have established a foothold here in Indian River County, and we want to lift up our efforts to help those who are the caregivers. And NAMI is primarily concerned with that. We don't have the professionals such as psychiatrists and all this, but those who are oftentimes left behind after a crisis. And so we, as NAMI, want to establish a better awareness of this. And thank you for that comments, because you explain pretty much what we do. But to help to strengthen this, we have established for the first time a IRIS award, which is the iris is the official flower for NAMI. And this award is to establish a recognition of those who respond to the crises, such as your sheriff and your police department, and who come to a crisis situation when there is a problem. And so therefore, we want to recognize those people who have been what we call CIT trained. And most of your police and your sheriffs in this county have been trained for this. So when they come, they have compassion and real caring. And we want to lift this up, and we want to award them. So we're going to be awarding these on the 8th of October, the sheriff and the police. And we'd like to invite you as well, as many of you might want to come and to be a part of that celebration. And it'll be from 10:30 or 11:30 to 1:30 on the 8th at the United Way building. And by the way, Olive Garden is going to be catering it. So there will be a good lunch. And we went to commend you for your recognition of this event, and we invite you to become a part of it.
And we commend you for your efforts. There's no question. It's a very important area.
Thank you.
Great.
Let us know, too, if you can come. I'll give you my card, and you can give me a call.
This is for you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. After being at Judge Cox's and seeing all the
Oh,
work they
didn't
did.
she do a beautiful job, didn't she?
It was wonderful, and like I said, all of our law enforcement, so I really appreciate all the help.
Hey, you might want to get back on the microphone and tell people in the audience on our TV how to hold you guys. Okay, to get involved.
Thank you.
Have your card.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I've been asked to give some information on how to get in touch with us. You can give me a phone call. That 257 no wait, that's my phone call. But try 538-2024, and you can get in touch with us. And
You have a website too?
yes, it's not on my card either, is it? What is the website?
NAMI IRC.
NAMI IRC. Okay.
Great.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got the art club coming up, and I'll apologize in advance because I know there's a lot of names here, and I hope I get them right. But the proclamation states that the Vero Beach Art Club is rich in history and reputation. It promotes the arts by way of educational scholarships, enrichment programs, and community projects. And the Vero Beach Art Club encourages and supports the appreciation and creation of fine arts and crafts. The Vero Beach Art Club recently accepted the request from the Vero Beach Recreation Department to paint an outdoor mural on the city's Bethel Creek House. And the JC Boardwalk mural was selected and approved from renderings presented to the city's Recreational Commission and City Council. And head painter and volunteer, Miss Lee Smith, organized a crew of painters who volunteered many hours in the intense heat to produce this work of art. And Miss Britton Smith, owner of Don Smith Painting and Decoration, donated the paint and supplies for the beautification project. And the city would like to recognize and give special thanks to the artists who volunteered their time and talent. Lee Smith, Lionel Ogilvie, Gail Dolphin, Tillman Maxwell, May Brandt, Sherry Hayland, Carol Bennett, Sue Denino, and Fran San Miguel. Now, therefore, the City Council of Vero Beach, Florida, does hereby present this proclamation to the Vero Beach Art Club in recognition for their time, effort, and civic pride that was put into making this mural possible.
Thank you. You know, the art club and the city have a long history of working hand in hand. This is the fourth mural we've done for you guys, and we hope there'll be more murals in the future. But we use, you know, the city's parks all the time, and we know that you think of us when you designed Humiston Park. It was wonderful of you, and we appreciate the opportunity to give back to our city.
Picture.
Sure.
Great. Good job. Thank you very much. That's great.
Oh, we already gave it out.
And while they're having their handshake, Rob Slezak, Recreation Director, can't say enough thank yous to the Art Club for all they do. We really appreciate that.
That's okay, we'll do it.
Thank you very much. That was good.
All right, under scheduled public comment, we have 3 items. Mrs. Jane Burton, would you come forward, please?
Mayor Winger and council members. The Treasure Coast Pilot Club is an organization of professionals which was formed to provide community service throughout Indian River County. We are proud to be sponsoring our 28th annual Autumn in the Park, November 7th and 8th, which provides financial support for our community services activities. These projects include Patriotism Cookies for Soldiers postage shipment, Veterans Project Assistance Program, scholarships for deserving high school seniors, Young Hero Award, Special Equestrian, Children Resources, donations and collection of needy items, participation in Cancer Walk, Spring Fling Party for seniors at Francis Manor, work ticket booth at Firefighters, participate in Alzheimer's Walk, pick-me-ups for caregivers, Summer Food Bank collection, Reading with Children at Homeless Center, and Food Angels for Habitat for Humanities is a few of our local projects. We also do some statewide projects which are sponsoring scholarships houses for deserving students in college at Florida State, Florida University, and Gulf Coast. This, we're asking that we be allowed to get a permit to provide alcohol at this function this year to help raise additional funds for we see the need for additional money in the community.
And is there, Jim, what do we need?
We
to
have
do?
absolutely no objection. They're very well organized and have no problem with the responsibility. They understand that they have a police officer as part of the security.
Wonderful. You just need consensus?
A vote would be good. Just
motion to
get
approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you so much for all you do in the community.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your support.
I see you're president-elect, so congratulations. Or condolences. Right.
Also, it should be noted that Jane Burton probably knows as much about our water and sewer system as Rob does, so she has spent a lot of time and effort when she was on the utility commissions.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Barbara Hoffman of the Cultural Council Executive Director, would you come forward, please?
Good morning, Mayor, council members, staff, and guests. Thank you for this opportunity to personally invite you to participate in the Cultural Arts Village Design Workshop, or known as Charrette. Since we last reported to you, the Cultural Arts Village leadership team has held 2 neighborhood resident meetings, one of them hosted by Chief Curry at police headquarters, a public meeting of businesses in and near the proposed arts village, and a public meeting of over 50 arts and cultural organizations, both of these meetings being held at the Heritage Center. The meetings were filled with lively discussion, energetic participation, and in the end, a consensus of support for the Cultural Arts Village. Last week and this week, we reached out to over 40 stakeholders, including all of you, for pre-charrette interviews with Dana Little, the Urban Design Director for the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. The next step in this community-based planning effort is a 7-day design charrette or workshop. Why a design charrette, you may ask? Because among many advantages, a design charrette brings people together to solve community problems. It advertises and unifies intentions for the village's future growth. It protects the character and the charm of the neighborhood. It gives wide citizen support and ownership. It attracts investment. It helps achieve desired and expected outcomes. It forms a reliable and a defendable basis for change. It prioritizes enhancements and community improvements. It embeds citizen ideas into the local comprehensive plan, and it puts fun back into citizen involvement. In just 10 days, the 7-day charrette design process will begin in the Heritage Center on Saturday, September 12th. From 9:30 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. will be the public design session where those attending will work in small work groups led by architects and planners, sharing their thoughts and visions for the Arts Village. Each work group will then present their ideas to the full group, thus process allowing us to see where the priorities lie. Day 2 through 6, September 13th through the 17th, the design process will continue with an open public studio in the business center of the downtown Hampton Inn. This interactive open forum, where architects and planners will be working on the Cultural Arts Village plan from 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock p.m. and probably well into the night, allows one-on-one with our residents, public, and providers, and provides optimal community participation. On day 7, which is Friday, September 18th at 6 o'clock p.m. in the Heritage Center, the planning team will present a work-in-progress presentation. The presentation is open to the public, and we encourage them to attend to see how well they have listened to us during the prior week. What happens next? In December, the planning team will submit a draft report to the Cultural Arts Village leadership team to assure local control over the process. Over the next 9 months, the plans will be reviewed and revised with recommendations with the city manager, the city staff, and the Cultural Arts Village leadership team. In September 2016, the plan will be presented to the City Council for approval, we hope. The leadership team and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have or provide additional information. There are several members of our leadership team in the audience, and so if you have any questions of us, we would be more than happy to answer.
Barbara, as far as timing goes, when Dana was here, and I think each of us probably met with him, he said that the best time for us to attend probably is the afternoon of the 18th rather than the morning, and then of course the afternoon of the 12th, and then the 6 o'clock on the 18th. Is that your?
Yes. Well, if you wanted to have input during the morning, what I understand will take place is during the morning there'll be work groups at each of the tables, and they will be putting together all the ideas that they have and the suggestions that they have, and they'll be putting them on whiteboards. And then those will then be all presented in the afternoon, and they'll be looking at where's their consistency? Where do we see the same thing coming up in several of the work groups? And that's how they will prioritize then the concepts and the ideas that will float into the village plan.
What time will that summation occur? I've already admitted I can't draw a straight line previous.
I'm really not sure, but the meeting ends at 3, so I would suspect it would probably be around 1 or 2 o'clock when they would be asking everybody to give each of the tables to give their presentations, and then look at the matching of the ideas that come forth.
Further questions of council, or
look forward to it.
Do any of our leadership team have any more comments? If not, we look forward to seeing you during the charrette. Don't forget, stop into the downtown Hampton Inn, see how it's coming along. That's open to the public. We want the public to be there, and then we do that presentation on the 18th at 6 o'clock. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just one comment. When they held the neighborhood meeting at the police department that Chief Curry put on, it was very interactive and very good. A lot of good questions came out, but we also discovered some issues that were in the neighborhood that we needed to sort of address, and I think the police department has followed up on all of that. We've made Tim McGarry aware of some of the issues, so it was a very good meeting in the fact that it not only addressed the arts zoning issues, but it also addressed some concerns in the neighborhood, and so well attended.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. James Gray, coastal engineer for Indian River County.
I do not see him here.
I do not see him here. We both know him. Well, I guess we'll pass over that and go to general public comment then. Just 3 comments before we do that. We would appreciate it if you try to stay close to 3 minutes. I say close. There's no absolute. Remember, there's no personal comments about a person here or not here. And please be factual rather than from time to time we've had some hyperbole and would rather not have it. So how many people, raise your hand, would like to comment? Okay. We'll start on this side. Mr. Wilson in front. Come forward, sir.
Good morning, Council. Charlie Wilson. No hyperbole today because I'm not planning. Actually, what I have to talk to you about today isn't about the electric issue. I know that's a real surprise, only partially about the electric issue, I guess. The first is that I'm wearing my hat today as the Chamber of Commerce Vero Beach president. And what I'm here to report is that we made a presentation earlier in the year. We've now completed 3 of our events, the Nina and the Pinta. We have the first annual Veterans Parade that we will have again next year. And we've just finished the Pirate Festival, which I think surprised everybody. We had 14,000 of my closest friends out at Riverside Park. Everybody had a great time. And one of the reasons I came today was I want to tell you that we worked with the Recreation Department, with Public Works, and with our police department, and I'm here to tell you they were exemplary. We've never had a group of people that with trying to learn as many things as we tried to do in a first-year event. The city departments were just unbelievably helpful, efficient, and they were just wonderful people to work with. So just wanted to tell you that. I'm sort of turning my attention away from politics to business today, and that's the reason I'm here. Even though we still believe at the Chamber, our board believes that the electric issue is still the #1 economic issue facing us, it sure would be nice to get this electric issue done so we can get back to just being a wonderful city. Ms. Hoffman's presentation was tremendous, and the group with mental health is just tremendous, and that's why we really need to return to a city that does that instead of what we've been doing for the last 5 years. But the reason I'm here is because I want to talk to you about the state of the economy of the city of Vero Beach. And some of the things you may not know, have you seen the vacancies on US 1, for instance? We're getting to be a place where it's a tale of 2 cities. We think of Vero Beach as a prosperous city. Well, half of it is. The other half isn't. And becoming less prosperous all the time. Some of those problems are because of government, and I'll get to that in a second. The vacancies on US 1 are increasing. You see them starting to be blight. We've had job losses, huge job losses at Piper, job losses at places called like the Dockside closing down. I'm not sure if you know, but according to the U.S. Department of Labor, Indian River County is the 7th highest unemployment in the state of Florida. Let me say that again. 7th highest unemployment in the state of Florida. But the worst fact, a fact worse than that, is that we have been in the top 10 for 22 years. 22 years we have been in the top 10 highest unemployed counties in the state of Florida. Now that tells me that something systemic is wrong. I mean, we're doing something wrong. And a couple of facts and figures you may not know is only 37% of the people that live in Indian River County work. In the city, it's 1 in 3. That's pretty major. So when we think about unemployment or the number of homeless or homeless kids that are in our schools, you may not realize it because so much of Vero Beach is very prosperous. But again, so much of Vero Beach is not very prosperous. And one of those reasons, let's take the Indian River Mall, which is not in Vero Beach but employs people from Vero Beach. The Indian River Mall electric bill last month was $97,000. Okay. And according to the manager of the mall, the real problem, one of the major problems they're having keeping tenants out there, which is a economic hub is because of their CAM costs, and that's the cost of their things like insurance and things like the electric bill. But a new one has just come up, and that is the post office. I'm not sure if you're aware, I talked to the postmaster the other day, that because the city of Vero Beach raised the rate so high on the property at the post office is moving. Okay? They are moving the business part of the post office within a month. Now, they say it's still under discussion, but he explained to us again, and that's the business part, the bulk rate permits and all the dropping all. So all the nonprofits and all the businesses that do a lot of direct mail are now going to have to go out to the post office near I-95 to do any kind of business mail. In my opinion, and in the opinion of the Chamber of Commerce, that hurts the city. That takes business away from the city. Now, they haven't made a decision about moving the entire complex. I'm sure that has to do with what their lease structures are. But according to the postmaster, they now have, I don't know what the lease is, $75,000, something. It went from something to something. $120,000. $120,000.
Charlie, just for informational purposes, that was the number they came up in their pro forma in which they did the calculations.
I'm not criticizing, but I'm telling you what the result is. The result is they now have 3 employees at the downtown post office, and they cannot afford, according to the postmaster, they don't believe it is financially feasible to continue to have a post office with 3 employees that has a higher rent and has high electric rates. So the chances are that it will move. And I believe that's something that the council could look at. I don't know if you want to go talk to the postmaster, but I can tell you that we have a problem in that they are going to move the business part of this within a month. And for businesses that are operating, that's an important item. Now, the Economic Development Council, and I believe that Mr. Kramer sits on the Economic Development Council. I understand the Economic Development Council adopted some rules the other day, and one of those rules was that they wanted to be at least 49% of the unemployment rate of the state of Florida. So our goal is to be below average in terms of employment. And I'm not sure that that's a goal that we should strive to do. So it should also be noted that in the Economic Development Council, more than half of the members of the Economic Development Council are government. They represent government entities or things that were funded or paid for by government. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that we need to take a focus on who provides jobs in this community, because even though very few people work, some do. And we have to keep them, and we have to help provide jobs. And so when you're considering things like electric rates, don't just consider the benefit to your own little group and what their households are. Think about businesses and think about the cost in jobs and the cost in people of our community. And in that end, what I'm here to tell you is the Chamber of Commerce Board voted the other day to establish a Vero Beach Economic Development Council. We're going to establish our own Economic Development Council, and one of the things that we're going to start doing is issuing unemployment figures for the city of Vero Beach on a monthly basis, so that we can at least be aware that we have an unemployment problem, and we have had for 22 years. So we're going to start putting this together. We're going to invite people to participate. As is in our bylaws, we're not going to have governmental participation. We're not asking you to participate. We're not asking the government to put it together. We're not asking you to come to the meetings unless you want to. And we take no money from any government. But we do have a number of volunteers that are going to be from different business sectors, and we're going to be starting to issue both memos to the council. Whoever our chairman is going to be will come up here and make some presentations to you. But it should be a valuable asset to the council when they think about business and jobs and our economic future. Lastly, on September 22nd, we're going to have a mixer, if you will, a meeting at the Patio Restaurant at 5:30. We're inviting all the candidates for city council to not make it's not a debate, it's not presentations, it's just to mingle with businesses. We're going to put out a notice to businesses. They're all invited to this event at the Patio Restaurant, 5:30 on the 22nd. We hope that those of you who are candidates will join us to be able to talk to some of the business people. And again, my intent is simply to start to focus some of our attention, not just with the electric issue and what that does to our homes and the groups of people who have a vested interest in it, but in our community as a whole. And our community as a whole needs attention to its economy. Thank you for your time.
You know, Mr. Wilson, your comment in talking to people around the city. I talked to two people yesterday, about the job situation here, and you're right on. And also, the opportunities for young people here are lag. Just as this one aside, there's three of us up here that have either part-time or full-time jobs. I work out of Annapolis, Maryland. Mr. Kramer works out of Indiana. And Mr. Old works out of the world, I guess. But the reality is there is not enough opportunity in this community. There's no question about that, and there are not enough jobs.
If we can set aside our other differences, can we work together on this?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, on this side of the room.
Mayor, Mr. Jason Brown is here from Indian River County Government, Finance Director.
Oh,
I'd like
yes,
to talk about our 1% sales tax issue. Actually have an item on my matters, but rather than hold up Mr. Brown, I thought we'd ask him to talk now.
Thank you for your suggestion. I'm sorry I didn't call you first.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Good morning, Mayor Winger. Good morning, City Council members. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm basically here to talk about the 1 cent optional sales tax that you have under your city attorney's matters later this meeting. The optional sales tax was initially levied in the county in 1989 for a period of 15 years. It was extended in 2002 for another term of 15 years. We're about to come up on that the expiration of that 15-year period at the end of 2019. Earlier this year, the Board of County Commissioners decided to move forward with placing a ballot question on the November 2016 election. For extension of the sales tax. The thought there was that is the broadest election. It gets the most voter turnout and the most representative vote of the electorate. So they tasked county staff with first going to the 5 municipalities and requesting a resolution of support, which we had done in the past. We've gone and gotten resolutions approved by the cities of Sebastian and Fellsmere. So we're here today, and later this month we're on the agendas for the towns of Orchid and Indian River Shores. So we're requesting your support of the 1 cent sales tax today. Once we get through with the 5 municipalities, we'll move forward with a public information campaign to inform the voters of some of the benefits that we see for the 1 cent sales tax. And then the board will have an ordinance approving the question, which must be done by next August. So if I could just briefly discuss what we think some of the benefits are of the optional sales tax. It helps us keep the property taxes lower. It shares the burden. It makes sure everyone pays for the infrastructure as needed. So it's been estimated that over 30% of the sales tax in the state of Florida is paid by visitors, tourists. And this is not something about, well, let's charge the tourists because they don't vote here. This is more about the infrastructure. If you look, our roads, our libraries, all of our infrastructure is built for the peak time. So traffic concurrency is based on peak use. So it's making sure that everyone is paying their fair share. And finally, it has to be approved by the voters. So if the voters don't approve it, it doesn't get levied. And we think that the extension last time was approved by over 60% after there was a track record of expenditures from the city and the counties, or from the county and the cities who all share in the revenue. So basically, we think the board thinks that it is a good revenue stream, and it's the best revenue stream for funding our infrastructure and benefits the taxpayers of the county and the municipalities. So we're here to request your authorization to have your staff draft a resolution for your consideration. And I'm also available if you have any questions this time.
Mr. Mayor, the city administration wholeheartedly endorses this effort. The sales tax to us is a major funding source for capital projects. And as Mr. Brown pointed out, the infrastructure would really lag behind if we don't have a funding source of this type. And again, it is a referendum, so it is voted on by the people, and hopefully we will be able to demonstrate the projects that are enhancing the quality of life in our community.
Is there council comment to Mr.?
Just as a question, do we want to take care of 9A now, which is the...
I just need a direction, make sure council wants me to bring back the resolution. The council had previously authorized and issued a letter in support, but Dylan Reingold, County Attorney, had requested the council consider a resolution also.
Okay. Let's just let the public talk and then we'll do it.
Is there anyone who'd like to talk on this particular topic? And then, we'll, as Mr. Kramer says, we'll do it.
Mark Mucher, 617 Indian Lilac Road. I'm not sure whether it's good I get to follow my friend Jason or not, but here goes. I fought against this the last time, and I guess it was 2002. I think I might have been the only one voted against it. And nobody listened to me then, and I don't expect the majority of you to listen to me now, but I just wanted to make some comments on this. As a matter of fact, I wrote a comment to the Press Journal in response to Larry Reisman's article about the sales tax a few weeks ago, and it's probably be best if I just read it to you. What people don't understand is that optional sales tax is free money to politicians. It just appears. Nobody is responsible for it, and you have to spend it. Look at the good examples that Larry cited in his article. Most are either unnecessary or overdone. Don't you think they'd be more careful, you would be more careful, if you had to vote for and tax for these projects? How about the examples he didn't cite? The city of Vero Beach borrowed $10 million, repaid with sales tax money for the Dodgertown golf course, which was worth $3.5 million at the time. But they had that sales tax money. Another example is Royal Palm Point. That project went from $4.5 million to $7 million in one day, and no problem. We'll just pay for it with sales tax money. Carolyn Ging called the optional sales tax the taxpayer's best friend. I call it the tax spender's best friend. Then they lie to you. They say up to 40% is paid by visitors. Well, that may be that number comes from the state, and it may be true in Disney County or South Beach in Miami, but certainly not in Vero and Indian River County. We full-time residents pay almost all of it and pay for it every day of the year. Plus, it hits the poorest among us just as hard as the rich. Please think about what I just said and vote no. Make your politicians responsible to vote for and raise the money they spend instead of giving them a 15-year blank check. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to talk about the sales tax? Mr. Daig, is that in the back? Yes, come forward, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, City Council members. For the record, Ken Daig, 1846 21st Avenue. On this 1 cent sales tax, many years ago when it was enacted, we called it the jail tax. But through the years, it's changed where it's helped out cities and counties. What I'd like to ask you to do is, you mentioned a little while ago, your city manager did, it's used for capital projects. Maybe at your budget or your meeting coming up Thursday, you can let the general public know, what are you using that 1 penny for? You said capital outlay, capital projects. Let us know what they are. Let us know what the money's going for and what you're going to use it for in the future in the event that it passes on the ballot and you guys okay the resolution. Thanks.
Okay, further public comment on the sales tax. Mr. Barrett, are you sure you don't want to talk? You're sure? Where are we going now, Mr. Comment? What is
just if council wants me to bring back a resolution, just consensus on that is a fine, because you'll be voting on the resolution if I bring it back.
You got my consensus.
Yeah.
Yes, you have a consensus.
All right, we'll have it on September 15th then.
All right, on the right-hand side of the room, any further comment? Okay, on the left, Dr. Faraday. I'm sorry, sir.
Dr. Stephen Faraday, Indian River County. City Utility Attorney Chef Wright said that the OUC proposal had to be run through by September 1st, and that was changed to September 15th. That is now one day after the City Utility Commission is supposed to consider the proposal. I don't really understand why there is the rush to do this. The City Council has not really rushed into any electric utility decision over the past 2 years. The contract's been referred to as an amended and restated OUC contract, wherein in fact the press has called it a brand new contract with a $1 billion cost. The concern that I've got is it's being run through in essentially a 2-week period, almost similar to how the original 2008 contract was run through. Previously, there was no OUC proposal. Side-by-side comparison was provided so that the public could understand what it is. The proposal, the original contract, those need to be provided so that the public has got the opportunity to clearly understand what is being proposed. The concern that I've got is that the details we received so far, which are very sketchy, would give some pause for concern that the rate decreases that are being proposed may possibly be manipulated in the proposal to bring the rates down in the near-term years and to have large increases in the later years, making the FPL sale offer go away, continue to keep captive the outside ratepayers, and show a court how the city is trying to lower the rates. The push for this October 1 date doesn't seem like it's economically or financially oriented, but may it be politically oriented. Also, I think focusing on the rates disguises some other issues. One, the minimum amount of power to be purchased is a real concern. There are efforts to get 2 amendments on the 2016 ballot for solar power, which would require the municipalities to purchase solar power from the houses, plants, et cetera, that generate it. In addition, natural gas is coming down south from Fellsmere. There are new transmission capabilities which provide for on-site natural gas electric generation. There are discussions with major users of City Electric to put those on-site natural gas electric generators in place, which would decrease the amount of electricity usage by the city. Regarding the OUC contract that's in place right now, this contract is for a longer period than its proposed replacement, is less market-based, and has no minimum. The Obama EPA administration's stricter carbon emission standards will put further pressure on a heavily coal-oriented OUC to increase future rates to cover the increased costs of meeting the emission standards, closing and/or converting plants, etc. This could impact the years 7 through 10 of the current contract, which is a period of time in which OUC must propose to the city any potential rate increases for years 11 through 20. If they do propose rate increases for years 11 through 20, then there is an exit clause with no penalties for leaving the OUC earlier than the 20-year current contract. That's about the 11th year. This gives the city more freedom of choice and options. One newspaper article stated that one out-year rate in the new proposal is actually higher than the current out-year rate. That would trigger the exit clause if it were in the current contract. I think it's important to try to find out and to have somebody acknowledge that there have been no communications whatsoever in any form indicating a possible discussion of rate increases by OUC in the out years of years 11 through 20. And that is very important for the public to know in terms of having that information available about determining about whether the new proposal is any good. Also, the city could retain its valuable oil and gas project interests, which OUC says it wanted in exchange for agreeing to the prior proposal. This would be valuable because of the stricter coal emission standards. Also, OUC wanted to have the first right to buy the city's interest in the St. Lucie power plant. Again, that will be a much more valuable asset for the city because of the stricter coal emission standards. Thank you very much.
Dr. Faraday, before you leave, I think it's you brought up a number of issues, and we couldn't deal with all of them, I don't think, today. But I'd like to ask Mr. Connor to state what is out there, what isn't out there, what the schedule is, and so on. I mean, the first part of what the doctor said.
Okay. The information that has been distributed was a proposal sent back from OUC to us. We had not responded to that. It is the document that we will start our negotiations. It is an amendment to the existing contract. If you read through that, it refers back to those times, and then the reduction in the term is the major issue. There is a rate page on the back, as I recall. It's in there anyway. That rate page is going to be part of our negotiations in establishing pricing. You asked the question, has OUC said there would be a rate increase in 11 through 20? And the answer is I have not participated in any of those conversations that there would be a rate increase. Now, they probably don't have any projections that far out right now, so they may or may not be able to show us anything. And so that is another issue. But it's critical to know that that document is really just the first rough draft. And if you'll notice in there, they had the black lines. We did not remove anything from there. You could read what was being changed, and they used two other different colors to try to modify that document. But it gave, I think, transparency where you could read the entire document of what's there. The other thing is the target for getting it back to the council. I think the council's made it very clear we have to have it the Wednesday before any of the meetings, and right now it all works out well. We would have it the Wednesday before the 14th, which would go as a joint meeting of the Utility and Finance Commission, and then the joint commission meeting will make a recommendation or comments at least to the city council. If they don't, we would defer it to the next meeting and go down that path of making sure that we have as much of an understanding or as a full understanding as you can possibly have on this contract. And that's what the effort's being done right now. I think it was wishful thinking that we would have the October the 1st as the implementation date. As the mayor said, and I agree with, $750,000 a month is a major number. But at the same time, I think that we owe it to everyone to make sure that we all can read the document as it comes through the process. And so that is where we are right now. It is an amendment. It still refers back to the original document as to what the changes are being made.
So Mrs. Bach, is the document on the webpage for the public?
Yes, sir.
How about is the original document? I mean, there are only 5 pages that have any material change in it. And
the original document is also out there.
So everything is out there as far as transparency is concerned.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I didn't. The original contract is on there. I know that. I'll have to look for the other one. So in effect, what we're saying, though, is that if it comes in on a Wednesday, it would then be scheduled for the following Tuesday city council meeting, and then that would be for a vote. So that is compressing when one would get the information to when it could possibly be voted on at the earliest period of time to about a 5 or 6 day period.
Yes, sir, the council could vote on it if they chose to do that at that meeting, but you have to get it into the public meetings for discussion.
Right. And it is an amended contract, not a brand-new contract.
That is correct. Yes, sir, it is amending it.
That's been flipping around as to exactly what it is. That's good. Thank you very much. I appreciate the clarification.
Thanks for your comments. And we couldn't possibly do justice to all of them. You had 6 or 7 points in there, but
no, that's okay.
I think we needed to make that one clear.
Good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Mr. Brocher, you.
Mark Mucher again. I just wanted to follow up on that. I keep hearing this $750,000 a month savings number, and all we have is a little line graph, and I'd really like to know where that's coming from. And in addition, instead of posting an old contract and a markup new proposed contract or a revision on the website, it'd be really nice to see a comparison between the existing and the proposed and all the material factors.
Well, to answer the second one, and I said a minute ago, there are 5 pages that have material changes. The rest just talk about First Amendment instead of whatever the original document was called. Where the $750,000, and you can't back figure the $750,000 looking at the rate chart because the city proposal hasn't come back, and Mr. Wright has talked about levelizing rates and where all that stands. I can't calculate, but I will give you the logic of the money. It's $126 million. See if I can do this properly in my mind. Divided by 14 years, but then it's only applicable for 8 years. Divide that number, and then divide it by the number of months, and you'll come to 750. Now, that. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
No, that's okay.
That's the most
okay.
ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
No, Mr. Wright said $176 million nominal, but in discounted dollars, 126 over 14 years. However, the contract will only be out there something like 8 years. So you can only apply it to 8 years. You do the math on that, and I think I did it for the Press Journal, and it comes to 750. But you can't. I have not seen the 126 because the rate chart that is in the provisional one, I wouldn't be able to calculate it from that. So I'm taking Mr. Wright at his word.
I think you might have come up with that number somehow, but I'd be willing to bet what little I have that our November OUC bill is not going to be half of $750,000 less than our October OUC bill. In other words, we're not going to see those savings in any month, let alone the first month. So it just doesn't make any sense unless you're running for office to say, I'm going to save you $750,000 a month.
Well, the only comment I would make is that's why this council has been so committed to transparency, and those numbers will have to be worked out and fleshed out to your and my satisfaction, and they will be what they will be. I was asked what the consequence of the numbers Mr. Wright gave, and it is 750, but no one says that that'll occur in the first month. I don't know that.
Well, let's see what the savings are in the first month.
Yeah, we have to go through that, as Mr. O'Connor said. I mean, that has to be put forward. It has not at this point.
They can be calculated from what's proposed. Now, if he's proposing to get a better deal yet, or trade off some things so that maybe we have to pay a little more, I don't know. I know the numbers aren't final, but with the numbers we have, those savings aren't there.
Mr. O'Connor, you might comment on the idea of the levelizing.
Yes, part of our discussion with OUC, as opposed to taking the front end reduction very high and then having the rates, as I told Mr. Wright, I would hate to see a reduction of $11 the first year, and the second year I have to come back to the City Council and ask for a $3 increase. And so we're trying to figure out a levelization over that period of time that A, can stabilize our rates, but B, will give us a true projection of what those are. The chart that's in that amended contract that is out there in the public today does not reflect that type. That's something that we're going back and talking to OUC about.
So you've put your finger on an important thing. In other words, that has to be done and made public, and it is not at this point in time. Further comment? Further public comment on anything? Yes, yes, sir, on the left, and then you, Mrs. Fry, after.
Good morning. I'm Louis Schlitt. I wanted to just thank you for the time that you've put into this, but I particularly wanted to reward a bit of thanks to Dr. Faraday, because part of this was what I get from him on a regular basis. He's putting hours and hours into his time, and he's done a great job. Somewhere along the line, communication is not communicated totally to the city and its responsibilities. But I think we need to look at that. But at any rate, my brother, John, he's older than me. I celebrated my 80th birthday, and he's 83, or 2.5, excuse me. John was the architect on this building, and many, many other buildings, and building across the street, the police department, and many other buildings in the community. And my brother Ed and died of cancer. My brother Frank, or our brother Frank, died of cancer as well. And the thing about it is I was named after Louis Schlitt. And my grandfather had enough sense to move his family from the St. Louis area, and never could figure out exactly where and what part of that area he came from. But anyway, he came to Vero Beach, and he's a very smart guy, apparently. He tied up all of the land from 18th Street to a dirt road all the way to 12th Street to a dirt road and all the way out to the water. The whole thing was they all had to be farmers. His daughters became farmers in some of the land. Some of them were from Fort Pierce at that time, or they ended up being in Fort Pierce. And it's just one of these things that you're really proud of the Schlitt brothers and the Schlitt family, only from the standpoint that there's about 48 grandchildren from our parents, John Schlitt and Florence. And so we're all proud of them and all the family. And so we feel a very, very strong part of the community for a long, long time. Not that we're not going to quit. It's just that we didn't want to join yet to the responsibilities that you have. At any rate, John, did you want to make any kind of a comment at all at this point, since I didn't tell you what I was going to say? But at any rate, John had to quit the architect business. He has a little tremor, and he's very happy to be here as well. I can tell you that. He, I worked with the city many, many years. I insured the plant. I insured it when it was built. And they had a big challenge for me when they had to take a whole big section of the power plant to Jacksonville to repair it. And I had to insure it all on the road and all the way back. And it was one of my most experiences of working with the city, making sure that they are going to be covered in a bad situation. But I think now is the time to get rid of the power plant because it's not insurable anymore. So I think we need to look at the fact that Florida Power and Light had given us a lot of good support, and I personally think that that is the most important guide. And I think they're our friends, and I think that they would be good to us for a long time, but I think we need to get this done, and I certainly challenge the council to move forward in getting the city out of the utility business, but they'll make more money on the taxes that comes in from all of the things that Florida Power and Light has to buy if you can work something out with them. But at any rate, my feeling is that you're going to be way, way, way ahead. It's kind of like that post office down there. You can end up with a bunch of empty buildings, but I think our goal is that, see, John, I'm trimming too. But at any rate, it's one of these things that we need to get behind us, and I'm very much pleased to hear from, be here in a great city like Vero Beach.
Hey, your family has contributed so much. Thank you, sir, for your comments. Mrs. Fry, you were next, I believe.
Good morning. Phyllis Fry at 275 Date Palm Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I wanted to take this occasion to thank Ms. Barbara Hoffman for a meeting we had last week with urban planner Dana Little to discuss the concepts of the Art Village, and I'm very excited and I'm very enthused about this. I think it might be one of the best things that's happened to our downtown area in a long time. So we're looking forward to see it unfold. I wanted to go back to our meeting, your meeting on May 29th, when you passed the resolution that would allow the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council to provide technical assistance to develop the Cultural Art Village. in downtown Vero, and your amendment cited that the city will not be devoting resources to the Art Village project and that all costs incurred by the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council in support of the project would be borne by the Art Council. And I know that the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council projects are taxpayer funded, and I requested a cost analysis from Mr. Little, including the types of grants that would be or might already be used in preparation for the project, and the amounts, the terms, conditions attached to the grants, these taxpayer monies, and for what specific purpose taxpayer dollars might be used for the Cultural Art Council project. And this includes the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council's design charrettes, hotel, lodging, travel, and any other expenses incurred by their planners, architects, builders, or consultant fees. And in response to my query, Mr. Little stated that $5,000 has been paid to the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council from private funding from the Art Council, and that no grants have been requested thus far. At the May 29th council meeting, one of the council members stated that there would be no height increases involved in the Art Village project, and that the purpose of the project is, quote, just to preserve what we have, end quote. It's well documented that the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council agenda supports changes to local planning and zoning laws in favor of increased building heights using mixed-use high-density development. Please see the source material and documents that I provided in packets to you today. When the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council comes back to the city of Vero Beach with their incremental implementation of their vision overlay, I would ask that you take the lead role and deny any plan for mixed-use zoning changes that would allow densification or an increase in building heights. And I hope that Honey Manous and Robin Polinsky and Tim McGarry et al. Are listening as well, because you truly are the gatekeepers. You hold the key, and I want you to keep that key. We all do, so that we can decide the future development of our community working together. So you have been great stewards, the founders. I was so glad to hear Mr. Schlitt speak today. We know what we have here. Ms. Hoffman and I were saying we just want to preserve and protect what we have, and you have been good stewards, and I thank you for that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Okay, further comment. Yes, sir, in the blue shirt.
Richard Bialowski, 685 Reef Road, Vero Beach. I just wanted to comment on what Ms. Fry just said, and when the plan comes before you, I simply hope you look at it with an open mind and no preconceived notions, because I think she was sort of co-opting the whole process by just giving you the final answer. It shouldn't be this, it shouldn't be that. Let's just look at it with an open mind. It'll be an open, creative process with a lot of public input. I've personally participated in a Treasure Coast Regional Planning charrette on my own property, my own project. It was great working with them. It was very interactive. As an architect, one thing I hope most architects learn, I'm sure John knows this, John's a fine architect, is that you don't know everything, Other people know an awful lot, and it's an interactive process, and good things come out of interaction. So again, I just simply hope that when it comes before you, whether there's an increase in density or height, and if that seems appropriate, you just simply look at everything with an open mind with no preconceived notions. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Further public comment. Mr. Day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, for the record, Ken Daig, 1846 21st Avenue. On the Arts Village concept, we're very thankful to have the Cultural Council helping with this. Ms. Hoffman and the team that I'm part of, she has done a wonderful job. Our team is made up of citizens throughout the county. We have a very diverse group of people. A lot of talent is on this team. The Regional Planning Council, we reached out to them to help us with the plan. The group as a whole, as a collective, spec'd out what we would like to see happen. with this. In this, when we were reaching out, we're not asking for any type of grants. We're not looking for that. It's strictly a vision for the Arts Village. In fact, if you're interested, the website is up and running at the Cultural Arts Council office there. You can take a look at it. We have some photos from Bradenton. We took a field trip there to see what it was about there. We talked to staff members from the Bradenton area and also the local business owners. How this happened is this little neighborhood, which is called Edgewood, for some of you that don't know. It was a neighborhood that reached out. They reached out to our neighborhood, where Vicki Gould's here today. She's our neighborhood president. They reached out to her, also to myself and some others, for some help in their neighborhood. And this idea came about, because they have some artists living over there. What can be done, where we could have working artists, that live and work out of their home and produce a product that can be sold. So we started looking into it further. The Cultural Council decided to take it, to take this on and help us out. Anyway, this little tiny neighborhood, if you all get a chance, go right around and look at the neighborhood. It needs some help. And these are just regular folk. They reached out for help. We had the first meeting with Chief Curry. Chief Curry and our city manager, our city manager was kind enough to be there. They got a good earful of what's happening in the neighborhood. And yes, the city manager gave a good little overview. They are addressing some of those concerns. And these concerns are some of the heavy-duty stuff that we usually don't talk about here in public meetings. Again, these folks reached out, and the group that I'm sitting with, we wanted to give some opportunity for jobs. And we're reaching out to all age groups, young people, middle-aged people, and retirees, to spark some economic vitality into this area. They just need some help. So maybe before you go to the shred, just go look at the area that we're talking about. It does need some help. We reached out. The city's been kind enough to allow us to work with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. The funding, right now the funding that's coming in to pay for this is all private funding. Some of the business owners, small business owners, larger business owners, they like this concept. So they've been willing to reach into their wallet a little bit and help defray some of the costs. And if anybody's interested in helping out a little bit more, we have a few more costs that we have to cover. But it's being paid for by private funding. Again, it's back to the people of the neighborhood. It's about this neighborhood. They reached out. They need some help. They like the Arts Village concept. And you're all professionals up there. You know, to do any type of changes in a neighborhood with as plans come forward, there has to be what I call the legal end of it, and you all understand that. And the neighborhood now understands it. And they've been with us from the get-go. It's about them. It's about people. It's about helping people, and that's what we're doing. And thank you so much to Barbara Hoffmans and her group. They have reached out, and I'm very, very thankful for their help. Thank you.
Mr. Dick, just one thing for the public, and I know you know the answer. Would you define for the public the streets that surround this particular area? I mean, there's probably somebody watching that doesn't know.
Actually, the best one to do that, because he's the P&Z director, would be Tim McGarry to give the exacts.
Well,
I don't want to go. The easiest way to describe it, and he can correct me because he's in the audience, if you know where the Freshman Learning Center is off of 19th Street, it's the neighborhood that surrounds the Freshman Learning Center. And if you stand at the Freshman Learning Center and look west, it goes to what I call the 20th Avenue Canal. There's a big old drainage canal there, and that's where it's cut off. Not a very large neighborhood.
And it's the area to the west, or to include 14th and to the west,
right
bordered on the north by State Route 60.
Border, that's correct. Border, and we have to be careful with Route 60. It's again just about this neighborhood. Okay.
Yeah, and it's, I think all the conversation, the shred, are an excellent thing. We'll see where it ends.
And thank you again for all of you supporting it up to this point. We actually really do appreciate your help, because it wasn't for you all giving the city manager permission for him and his team to work with us, it wouldn't be happening. And a big thank you to Councilmember Old. He did go with us on our field trip to Bradenton. We had a lot of fun, by the way. Thanks.
All right, any further public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment. That'll move us to the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to remove?
Move for approval.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. That'll move us into public hearing. It's now 10:45, so I think we can go a little bit longer anyway. It'll move us to 4A, which is legislative. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, repealing Resolution 2013-40, establishing prices and fees for Crestline Cemetery, establishing hours of operation, providing for conflict and severability, and providing for an effective date requested by the Public Works Director. Staff comment, please.
This is predicated on the fact that we have been discussing the cemetery and how we can try to generate and improve our revenue streams, and we are recommending a reduction in these rates. Hopefully that'll build some more of the demand, but it still covers our cost of the operation.
Is there council comment about this? Public comment. Go ahead, Mrs. Turner. I'm sorry.
Yeah. One comment on the resolution on page 1. Sorry, I get back to my notes here. On the third whereas, it says that we're going to modify the burial lot and columbarium pricing to ensure that Crestline Cemetery and the cemetery fund will continue to be self-sustaining, which isn't really inaccurate. We would like it to become self-sustaining. But we have not been self-sustaining in the last 5 years, so I'd like to have that at least clearly stated. To become self-sustaining.
We can make that change with no problem.
Thank you.
Is there public comment? Seeing no public comment, I'll entertain a motion if there's no further discussion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Thing went by so quick. I was just going to question the pricing on this, but I suppose we're already in the voting process. I mean, you cut the prices in half, and I'm almost thinking, do we have to go in half? I mean, if we cut it a quarter, then at least we'd start to see if there's a volume change.
Well, I think we have to do something pretty drastic.
Dramatic.
And actually, it's looking at it's just the columbarium niches that changes. Monty's here can explain it better. It looks like it's dropped 400. From
it's not the
19
plot.
to 1,500 and
Monty Falls, Director of Public Works. Sorry, but they didn't cut in half. You're looking at this, the rates for the city residents are half of what they are for the county residents. The reduction, you got to look at the 1,900 to the 1,500, and the 38 to the 3,000.
Okay. Yes. Yes. All right. That'll move us to 4B.
Just wanted to comment before we leave
Go
the
ahead.
cemetery
Absolutely.
thing. Just, I understand we use outside contractors to do some of the opening and closing of cemetery lots.
Can you grab Monty?
The answer is yes, they do contract with. Talking about opening and closing of cemetery plots that we use contractors or the mortuaries usually use.
It's done by contract work. All we do is stake out the grave site for them so that they get the correct one.
Okay, and my concern is, hey, here we are in the city. We have public works. We have that equipment. We have the personnel. Why are we using outside contractors? And surely this is some way where we might be able to save some costs and make our operations more economical.
That cost isn't borne to the city, and we would have to, if we got into the business, we would have to purchase the equipment that actually puts the vaults in the ground. Because when you dig the actual grave space, you put the vault in the ground that secures the excavation while it's there, so the sides don't collapse. So we don't have that equipment to date, and that is done by the funeral homes. They contract with a grave digging service that does that. But it's not a cost that accrues to the city.
It accrues to the
customer.
The customer.
No, but if it's a way that maybe we could, if we provided that service, that we could get some additional income to have the cemetery be more,
We could look at that if that's what if.
I think it's worth just taking a look at. Okay.
No, I would agree. I'd like to see what the cost would be.
And if it's something else that we can do to try to get the cemetery on a financial, on a more financial
Let us look at what
Be
the
glad to.
cost, the capital investment
Yeah,
going in,
it may
and
not,
go from there.
may not be, but I think we'd
Be glad
like to
to
take
take
a
a
look at it. Thank you.
All right. That brings us to 4B, an ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, relating to the city's septic tank effluent pump step system program, amending certain subsections in Section 78-83 and Chapter 78 of the Code of the City of Vero Beach related to payment options for step system charges and fees, providing for conflict and severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date requested by the city attorney. Mr. City Attorney.
This codifies makes it more clear that customers can opt for a payment plan, and it authorizes the city manager basically to go ahead and okay construction prior to the council actually adopting the lien resolution.
Any council discussion before I open public comment? Seeing none, any public comment? No public comment, no discussion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Roll?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. That moves us to 4C. This will require a second hearing on 9/15/15, September 15th, 2015. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending the land development regulations, Part 2 of the Code of the City of Vero Beach relating to medical marijuana dispensaries, providing for conflict and severability, providing for an effective date requested by the Planning and Development Director. Staff comment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, I'm Tim McGarry, the Director of Planning and Development. Before you, except for a minor change to the definition of a medical dispensary, you have the same ordinance that went before you back in November of last year, and which was adopted by you all. This was reviewed, the draft ordinance reviewed by the City Attorney's Office, by the Police Chief, and by my staff. And basically, we felt we had a good ordinance the first time around and didn't really have any need for changes. Do recall that our ordinance, really funny, I thought it was kind of funny, that the same day you adopted it, it was also sunsetted later that day when the amendment to the Constitution failed. The reason for the ordinance coming back for you now is the concerns being raised about another amendment proposal as well as possible legislative changes. And we wanted to be in place to hopefully get vesting on this. The Florida League of Cities has been asking local governments to move forward on this. It would help solidify any lobbying they may have to do to protect vesting. There's no guarantee of vesting, but if you all recall the vacation rental issue, we like to have definitely something in place. Even if they don't vest entirely, we may get some modifications that would take into place. And the more governments that have this in place, the more it's difficult, obviously, for the state legislature to do something out of the ordinary. I won't bet my life on that, but I'm just bringing that up. Basically, the ordinance limits the medical dispensary, marijuana dispensaries to locations in our industrial zone. There's a site separation factor from residential zoning districts and sensitive land uses like daycare, schools, and parks and so forth, and these will require conditional use approval. So there's a lot of conditions on it. We have operating and maintenance requirements that are we went through a long process to do that, to have that approved. So I'm not going to go over the details of this since you've heard it before, but I certainly will answer any questions you may have.
A couple questions for you, and they're just details. I mean, it's certainly something we need to do. Are there other industrial areas that this would open up?
I looked at it one more time because at the last meeting, no, they're all either too close to, basically too close to the separation limits. I could not find any that, unless you think Piper may decide to subdivide and set up a medical marijuana dispensary somewhere on its property. It's just kind of out of the ordinary. I did look at all these, and again, just to be sure, because that's what I did at the last hearing, and I did not find a property.
Yeah, I watched the hearing, so that's the reason I asked the question. The other one is there's that little finger to the west of the railroad, which I don't know.
Well, and recall, I've got it on. If I could show it, but basically, this is not a overlay district, so we're not changing the zoning ordinance. It's basically one of these distance separation things. So that doesn't necessarily mean we just looked at areas that meet that eligibility. That doesn't necessarily mean this is not specific, but when you use that approach, that's what you get into. If you want to get into designated areas, you would have to change the ordinance, meaning you would do an overlay district saying this is where it's going to be. I'm not even certain a lot of these properties are already developed. It isn't like you have a lot of undeveloped area. You would have to have some changes in that. So hopefully that answers your question.
It's an answer. Other questions from the council?
I'm just glad to see us being proactive and going forward with it.
I open to public comment. Mr. Daigle, come forward, by all means.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Ken Daigle, 1846 21st Avenue. If you would please, in your ordinance on page 1, the very first page, and you go to the second paragraph, it talks about there, whereas the City Council has determined that it is in the best interest of and would serve to promote and protect the public health, safety, and welfare, to regulate the location and operation of medical marijuana dispensaries in the event that the state of Florida legalizes it or they do something else. In other words, that's not in there. I just wanted to throw that in there. You talked about site separation up here. If you would please go to page 2. It's section 65.651 point purpose. That's on page 2. And if you go to page 3 and look at number 3, promote and protect the character and vitality of the city residential neighborhoods and commercial districts throughout the site development of the standards for dispensaries and limiting the location of dispensaries to the M Industrial District and only as a conditional use, and protect sensitive land uses from the potential adverse effects of the dispensaries by requiring physical separation between such uses in schools, public parks, and child care centers. Go to page 4, if you would, please. Section 62.654, conditional use requirements and special conditions. Not to be located within 1,000 feet of any school, child daycare facility, public park, or other existing medical marijuana dispensary, or within 500 feet of any residentially zoned property. What I would like you to please consider is in your M zoning, you have residents that reside in the M zoning. They live there. They either rent small little like quadplexes or fourplexes, little apartment houses, things of that nature. Older homes are in some of your M zoning. You talk about residentially zoned property. That's just for the zoned that I would like you to include. How did I word it here? Would you please insert the following? Insert occupied residential dwellings where people live. The mayor mentioned a little finger. If you look at the little finger there, that's that little piece of property that's to the west of the track, and you face to the east, then turn, as soon as you turn on the edge of the property, and it would be looking to the west, you have people living in homes there. They're older homes. They're little apartment houses, maybe 3 or 4 units per. It's a diverse group of people. There's older people there. You have middle-aged people there, and you have kids. This happens to be on a dead-end road, and when these type of facilities open, from the research that I've done, is they do generate quite a bit of traffic. So what I'm asking you to do, along with your residentially zoned property, if you could say occupied residential dwellings, because you're doing it around parks and schools, and if you could do the 500-foot mark, that would be most helpful to these people living there also. Because what they would get worried about, if you pass something like this, since they're in the M zoning and you do have folks that live there and it is people, is the city going to evict them or get rid of them out of their homes? These dispensaries, and I'm sure some of you have done your research, you know about them, you've been around for a while, they do have an adverse effect on your community. The chief gave a talk to the P&Z board a few weeks ago, and he gave an excellent overview about the security concerns. It was well done. And if nothing else that I took away from his little talk is do everything you can as a city to protect your residents. And as your very, very, very first page says, public health, safety, and welfare. So what I'm trying to say to you today is, please protect your people, your residents that live in the M zoning. Okay? A lot of them, too, that live in these M zoning zones, these industrial zones, they're not like of the affluent side of the equation. It's just lots of times hardworking people. Lots of times they're not going to come in to address you because they're afraid. And also, with this type of ordinance, none of the properties had to be posted because your city regulations don't require it. I asked around, after it was done at the P&Z house, do you guys know about this? And some did, and a lot of people didn't. So what they're hoping you would do, and they understand that you need to do something, is that you would please remember these residents that live in your M zoning. You do have some mobile home parks that are in the M zoning. Those later on down the road, because apparently these type of businesses are very profitable, folks could turn around and sell those parks to a company that wants to come in to set this stuff up. So since Mr. McGarry stated it very well, you're not doing an overlay where you're saying it only can go here. It could go in other places. And again, you've all been around long enough. These type of situations, they generate a lot of revenue. Lots of money's come into these places, and when the folks that own them, once they can do what they can, legally, they have the money to do whatever they need to do. Back to the city doing everything they can. You're the city fathers and the city moms, city mothers. That's what people say you are, and it's a big charge. You're there to take care of your people. And if you don't take care of the lesser, nobody else will. And I just wanted to bring it to your attention. The ordinance, Mr. McGarry explained to you, they worked very hard on it. I'm just asking you to tweak it just a tad. I'm sure the city attorney could give you a little bit better language than what I just had, because he's the attorney. If you could just do something to protect these people that are close by in your M zoning. And that's all I'm asking you to do. Am I clear on my explanation?
I think so.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there anyone in council who would like to comment, or the city attorney?
I think one of the main things I listened to the planning and zoning thing, and I think the fact that it's a conditional use, it still has to be approved, right?
Well, if you don't have that little addition layer of, like you have in there, you have under your conditions, you can't have it here, here, here. That's a condition.
Right.
But you didn't talk about the little dwellings that you have now that are right in the zoning, right next to it.
Yeah.
This little finger, it just happens to be a vacant piece of property that's, pretty good size piece of property. And like, here's the property right here. You can walk out the property and there's homes right there. And it happens in this particular case to be a dead-end street where, I'll tell you right now, you will have situations. After hearing the chief's talk, you're going to have situations.
Well, his was Colorado on recreational
right.
use.
Well, it talked about the dispensaries, and the whole idea as a city, do as much as you can to protect your people.
Right.
If you don't want to do the 500-foot mark in your M zoning, well, maybe cut it down a little bit. But right now, you do have people that live. My point to you guys and ladies, you have people living in the industrial zones. Now, they're not going anywhere, okay? They're not going to, when you enact this, they're not going to leave unless somebody evicts them or the city evicts them for whatever. So your decision, there's consequences. So again, I'll keep saying it over and over. Please protect these people. Right now, they are not protected. in your M zoning, your industrial zoning. I keep saying the M because that's on the map. It's the industrial zoning, the very heavy zoning. That's all I'm asking. If you need to cut the footage down from 500 to something less, please do that. But please protect the residents there. Thanks.
So, question, Mr. McGarry, is there anything we can?
Let me go through the problems with what we're dealing with.
Thank you.
The first thing is, if you use occupied residence, remember, residential is not even allowed in these zones. So we either have grandfathered units in there, or we have illegal going in. And the industrial zone is intended for a lot of these kind of uses. I mean, these people are in a district that really we don't want to have residential anyway. So there are other uses that may impact them. The concern we have, you take any occupied residence, you may have no property that would meet that, because we have residents right to the east of that area that I identified that might be eligible. There are residences in that. So basically, we'd have to be down tailoring you get to the point, why not just prohibit them? That's exactly what you get to. The other hand, it is a conditional use. One of the things you have to do in a conditional use, there are things you have to look at the neighborhood. It's going to be, it has to go through a conditional use process, which means there are other criteria involved, and the site itself will be posted and everything. People will be very aware this is what's going on in that neighborhood. The other concerns I would have is picking on a piece of property here. We're getting into quasi-judicial application because we're on a single property. The way we've done this is just looking at distances, and then with having criteria on it. It's much more even-handed way to approach this. If we start singling even property, we're in a different process to do that. So I'm still, as the Planning and Zoning Board, we're still recommending to move forward with what we have. We feel we have a good ordinance. And, anything more you want us to do, we would have to get back in there and figure out how this would all work out, because I couldn't guarantee that we'd have any property left if we followed the recommendations. We'd have to play around with it some more. So,
does this extend to all M zoning?
Yes, it's all M zoning, but if you look at the criteria, as I said, I went through on the map and pointed out, I brought up a mobile home park. Well, there's a mobile home park in the water, but it's got a future land use designation, wouldn't even allow it to change. So
that's what I was saying. I got Fairline Harbor sitting there.
Yeah, it couldn't be done. So, we're into that kind of thing.
How about the trailer park at the airport?
The trailer park at the airport would be still within... it's zoned MHP. It's got a different zoning already. It's zoned multifamily. Or not multifamily, it's the mobile home park in the airport.
AR MHP.
Yeah.
Well, I share the concerns, but at some point I think you have to take what staff says.
Any future council could do something in the future. That comes to a point you have to look at that.
All right, further council. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Sorry to come up again. Ken Daig, 1846 21st Avenue. M zoning. Back to touch on a little bit what Mr. McGarry was talking about with people living in the M zoning. Some of these folks have been in the area, and the city changed the zoning. So that's why they're there. They didn't move in there. They're not there. I don't want to say illegally, but they've been there for quite some time. And what happened over the years on the mainland, if you look at some of our neighborhoods, especially around the commercial areas and the heavy commercial areas, you have spotty housing. And what happened through the years is they put in zoning to have businesses, and what happened, it degraded the neighborhood. It didn't quite work. They had intended other things to happen in the positive, but it had the unintended consequences. So if you look around again, this is mainly on the mainland. It deteriorates neighborhoods. And back to these people, they were there first, and the zoning changed around about them. So I want that to be clear to you all. And even if you did and drop footage down, and we're not picking on any one property, what I'm bringing up again is the people that live close to an area. You want to do what's best for the people. They're not going to go anywhere. And to me, it's just not fair to have them burdened with this where they're going to have a downside on this. And I can show you areas in the city where years ago Their intent was good, but it deteriorated the area. And you got to also look at this housing stock. There's a lot of folk that can't live on the island side. They just can't afford it. And if you keep wiping out affordable housing, which I hate using that term, but it is what it is, and for your working folks that we're trying to get the Arts Village up and running for economic opportunity. A lot of them, they're going to come in. They're young people. This is going to, if it does happen, it's going to be right down the road, and we're going to have situations with it. So back to protecting the people. If you can do just a little bit more footage and protect these people in the M zoning, there's a couple of other mobile home parks off of US 1 to the east.
By the Elks Club.
Yes. Now, again, back to this. That's what it looks like to me on the map. It's what I call the M zoning. I could be wrong, but I think it's those trailer parks or mobile home parks also. They're affordable housing too. So,
are they not protected by Michael Field?
Yes.
Well, maybe one is, but then coming back to the others. But okay, you make a good point. You're protecting a baseball field with the 500 foot. What about the people? And in the zone that we're talking, I don't use the word zone because you're not doing an overlay, but the area you're talking about now, you have people. And again, going in the future, you guys may not be here, 5 or 6 years down the road. I'm sure you want to move on and do something else. But people can come in and sell off areas in the M zoning, and the protections are not in place. And again, back to what our chief had told us. Really do everything you can as a city to protect us. We can't do it afterwards. In the event that the state legislature passes something through here, whatever we have on the books, we can fight and defend. And I say put as much on there as you possibly can. If the state does something else at the higher level, at least I believe in home rule. We can protect ourselves, and we'll have to defend ourselves. Because this is stuff our community doesn't want. We're trying to get jobs going here. We don't want to run people out of these neighborhoods. We don't want to run them out of the M zoning. You have people living there. It's people. People. Please do something to protect them. You're not doing enough, and I think you got that. I understand what Mr. McGarry's saying. Okay, thanks.
I got to agree with them just because I'm seeing 2 mobile home parks in there, and I know the one by the Elks Club's got an awful lot of kids there. I mean, I'm looking at the map.
Well, no, but it's out of the area. That's what I'm saying. It's within the 500. It's the 1,000 feet. The sensitive park. The thing. I looked at the map.
Are we talking about all of the M's area?
This is the only one that meets that criteria.
Yeah, that's the only thing that meets the criteria.
So we're only talking about in
that pink area. Yeah, I could show it up on the. It's the one.
Can you bring it up for me?
Yes.
Well, it's not that pink area. It's black and white.
It shows pink on mine.
Oh, it's black on ours.
That's the area. And I said, this comes from GIS. We did a quick look at this thing. We did the measurements, and that's what it had. So all the other areas either have parks or something up around them that makes it impossible to do.
So the M across the tracks are not included in that either.
Right.
No.
So the trailer parks are not included in that. Okay.
And getting back to it, I mean, you could go ahead and say we're going to prohibit them, but we don't think that's. And you can talk to our attorney. We don't think that's the appropriate way to go, just because that may be frowned upon by the state when they do their.
Well, and I want to have some control if they come.
That's correct.
Some form of control,
yes.
if any.
And as we go along, as legislation moves forward, if we do have to do some tweaking to this, we will do that. We will be back before you.
There are houses in there.
Well, there are houses in there. Are you talking about the mobile home park?
Well, I know along Wilbur there's a lot of homes in there.
There are homes along Wilbur in that, but that's a mixed use. It's a non-residential district. I mean, again, I get back to it. Using this kind of approach, if you get to the point, if you include all that, occupied or whatever, you end up with nothing. You might as well prohibit it because that's what happens. It's a de facto prohibiting. Pardon?
I don't have a problem doing
well,
that.
I mean, but that's a policy decision for you all to make.
And the problem is if the state says this is now a legal use and you have lose the ability to control it if you don't have something in place to say, yes, this is where you can have it in this particular zone. If you can't completely forbid a legal use, I mean, you're just going to have all kinds of legal challenges and spend a lot of money, and it's not very likely you're going to prevail in the end if it's a legalized use.
I'd like to make a motion to set this for a second hearing for September the 15th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
No.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. Okay, that means, by the way, it's 11:15. We probably can press on, but does anyone need a break? We might finish before. Okay, that brings us to 4D, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, repealing Resolution 2009-26, adopting updated rules and fees for the Vero Beach Municipal Marina, providing for an effective date requested by the Marina Director. Staff comment, I believe this is increasing the rates so we can make the budget, right? Simply put.
Good morning, Council. Tim Graymeyer, Marina Director. Yes, I'm requesting an increase in most categories of storage for infrastructure maintenance and customer services. Our last adjustment was in 2009, and the rate of inflation since then has been a little over 9%. And this increase was also supported by the Marine Commission.
Council comment.
Just got one comment. Is the amount of money that we make on gasoline, is that a percentage of the price of gas, or is that just a fixed?
It's a fixed margin.
Okay, so
yes.
As the gas goes lower, we're not hurt by it?
No, as the gas goes lower, it helps us because we pay less of a credit card discount to the credit card companies.
Oh, got it.
All right, public comment? Seeing no public comment, I close that resolution.
To approve.
Second.
Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. That brings us to 4E, an ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Section 8231 in Chapter 82 of the Code of the City of Vero Beach relating to vehicles for hire, providing for conflict and severability, providing for codification, providing for effective date requested by Police Chief. Staff comment, please.
Good morning, Mayor. Members of the council, David Curry, Police Chief. This, as you know, we have a motor vehicles ordinance, and with that we permit and regulate our vehicles for hire, such as taxi cabs and limousines. And what we thought we'd do would, this would just add the Uber type services and the Lyft type services to this as well. We do a yearly application starting today, actually, and that allows us to look at who is driving our vehicles for hire and operating those vehicles. That includes a photograph and fingerprint and a bit of a background check as well. So we just want to add that service to this existing ordinance.
I think it's great.
And Chief, that is about a $30 charge, correct?
That's a 30 fee per year.
Mrs. Turner, go ahead.
Just curious, I guess. So while we need this, are we expecting we have Uber service here in Vero Beach?
We have like
something?
8. Yeah. 8 of them, 8 or 9
Sorry,
of them driving
like I said,
around
I admit my ignorance to it.
It's a bit of a preemptive issue as well to include, because we certainly want to. You're probably reading some of the larger areas are dealing with them, and we won't be immune to them as well. As Councilmember Graves had mentioned, we haven't specifically dealt with any yet. Key West has actually arrested somebody based down there, contrary to their ordinance already that's in place. So it's just something that we have in place that we know who's operating Uber services, and they'll be permitted and regulated through the city ordinance.
And actually, the legislature has already looked at this, and this is another area where we could be preempted if we don't act. And hopefully, if the legislature does create some statewide regulation or saying you can't regulate it, again, perhaps we can get grandfathered. It's basically just treating these services like any other vehicle for hire, a taxi cab, because that's basically what they're doing.
Are we seeing this type of, regulation in other communities? How common is
Oh,
it?
yes.
Absolutely.
The other cities, I went to this this meeting of cities up in Orlando a couple of weeks ago, and everybody has a different reaction to it, and everybody's doing something in their communities about it preemptively.
And most are out in front, and again, larger Hillsborough County, Palm Beach County, I know of for sure.
And I'm not saying it's the usual or the normal, but with Uber, you have people driving who there are not necessarily background checks going on. So you want to know if someone's picking you up that they're not
picking you up in a white van
with no windows.
Well, if there ever is an issue,
it's a one-way
just like a taxi
get in
or
there,
limousine,
that's your choice, I suppose.
We'll have hopefully information of the operators again that we can look into as far as again their names and the service. We'll have a fingerprint and a photograph.
All right, public comment. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. A motion.
A motion to approve.
Second.
Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Roll?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes, passes 5-0. Now that brings us to F. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, requested by Robert Rennick to amend Chapter 31, Boats and Waterways, and Chapter 63, Off-Street Parking and Loading Requirements of the Land Development Regulation related to the leasing of dock space, and boat slips to non-tenants in C1A and C1B zoning districts, providing for continent and severability, codification, providing for an effective date requested by the Planning Development Director. Staff comment.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The draft ordinance before you was requested by Mr. Ron Rennick. Mr. Rennick was found in violation of Section 3105 of the code that prohibits the renting of docks, dock space, or moorings to non-tenants except in marina zoning districts. Mr. Rennick's property is at Royal Palm Point. Basically, as part of the violation, we gave Mr. Rennick an opportunity to enter into a compliance agreement, which omitted his violation, but to see if there could be a change in the regulations. Mr. Rennick's attorney prepared a draft ordinance that we reviewed with them to come up with something that the staff could support. Basically, it makes revisions that would allow the leasing of docks and dock space and slips to non-tenants in the C1A and C1B districts. The only place where this would apply would be on Royal Plum Point, nowhere else in the city. Additionally, the ordinance amends the parking regulations that would require parking for these slips and docks, 1 per 3 slips or dock space, similar to what we require in a marina district. At the public hearing, residents did turn up from Vero Isles complaining of concerns about it. The ones that own riparian property right along south of Royal Palm Point came up with various concerns. During the hearing, the staff did explain to them that it'd have to go through a development order, whether a site plan or a code compliance order. But also, since these lands are city-owned lands, submerged lands, they would have to go through a license agreement with the city. And much of the concerns that the citizens had about what would happen and all that, the staff had indicated at that time could be handled under a license agreement. The license agreement is a much more easy mechanism to use when we own the property than it is in code enforcement. Go through the process. It's basically you would all have to approve the license agreement, and they could be terminated almost any time. There's a 90-day termination period or 14 days if it's in the public interest. So if the licensee doesn't follow what's required in that license agreement, they could be terminated by the city manager. After the Planning and Zoning Board unanimously recommended approval of the ordinance itself, the staff did bring up that they would want to bring back some proposed revisions in the license agreement we don't normally have, and these came before the council at the subsequent meeting, and they recommend approval, and I believe they're shown as attachment C in your agenda package, which comes up with the recommended changes, which basically would hold these to they couldn't have transit usage. You would have to have at least a month, and several other types of things. Some in the ordinance, but wouldn't allow liveaboards or any of that kind of stuff. So we felt that would be a strong restrictions on that, so you couldn't have abuse. One of the other things we did put in there would have to be an accounting, that they would have to register the name and owners of the boats and their license registration numbers with the staff as they come along, so we could keep track of that. It's always a difficult thing when you have a lot of boats docking up and you're not certain who owns that and that. So I have Mr. Bruce Barquette here, who represents the client, and if Bruce would like to have a few words, or certainly both of us could answer any questions you may have on this, or however you...
Well, are there questions of council?
Yeah.
I just have one question. I know you had a lot of the neighborhood people were kind of agitated by this, but I'm just going to ask your opinion. Do you think a lot of those neighborhood objections have really been answered and they're okay with it?
We believe they have. Now, there are neighbors that don't want it under any circumstances. It doesn't matter what we do. But we believe that with the license agreement, certainly could put restrictions in there, and we can follow up on the thing. And the funny thing is, we did send out. We invited them to the post meeting that we talked about the provisions and license. None of them showed up. We've sent out full agendas to them, and none of them have shown up here to talk. So hopefully that's an indication that they're satisfied with what they have, or some of them have given up hope. I don't know. But anyway, Mr. Barquette's here. If you see.
I'm sorry.
I apologize.
No. Bruce Barquette representing Mr. Rennick. Mr. Kramer, I think we answered most of their questions at the P&Z meeting, because what their questions were about were, well, what's to prevent fuel pumping? What's to prevent sewage pump out? What's to prevent liveaboards? Well, none of those are permitted. This ordinance has nothing to do with that. So I think when we answered those questions after the meeting, I spoke with some of the neighbors, and they were very satisfied. They didn't understand what was coming up, but once they understood this didn't allow you to create a marina, it didn't allow you to pump fuel, didn't allow you to pump out sewage, didn't allow you to do bait sales. Once they understood that, I believe that satisfied a lot of their concerns.
I have a question. It's the canal to the south of Royal Palm Point, but is it also the canal to the north? I believe it is it not?
It would be, but most of that's owned by the Vero Beach Marine Center already, and they're already doing boats.
And the other side of it is land that's reserved. What is on
the other side of it's not zoned properly, so it doesn't have the proper zoning. But I also think I believe it's conservation land for the Barber Bridge.
I do think so too.
So you couldn't do anything there. I'm sorry. If there are any, I wasn't going to make a presentation, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to do that.
I don't know. Further public comment?
Motion to approve.
Seeing none, I'll close.
Second.
Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes.
Thank you, Council.
Yes, we can certainly have a 5-minute break. What's the 5-minute break bring us to?
11:35.
11:35.